Alright, so you have the rules for perfect square trinomial here. First and last terms have to be perfect squares, and the middle term has to be twice the product of the square roots of the first and last term. Middle term could be positive or negative, as long as the number works out properly. So let's check part A. First we need to check that the first and last terms are perfect squares. So perfect square is anything that you can write in the format of something squared. A squared is a perfect square. 4 I could write as 2 squared, so that's a perfect square as well. So it meets the first requirement. Second one, the middle term must be twice the product of the square roots of the first and last terms. So if I do 2 times the square root of the first term times the square root of the last term, I should get the middle term. So let's see, 2 times square root of a squared, the square root sign and the squared sign cancel each other out, so that's just an a. And the square root of 4 is 2. So 2 times a times 2 is 4a. So your middle term is 4a, that matches. So yes, this is a perfect square trinomial. You can write this as square root of a squared is just a, square root of positive 4 is 4, or is 2, sorry. So a plus 2 squared. So yes, that one works. Part B. Check the first and last terms first to see if they're perfect squares. So x squared is a perfect square. 6 is not a perfect square. The square root of 6 is just a decimal number. So right away you can say, nope, this is not a perfect square trinomial. Part C. So to check if this is the first and last terms of perfect squares. 4x squared. If I could write that in the format of something squared, then it would be perfect square. So I know that 4 is 2 squared. So 2 squared times x squared, I could write that as 2x in brackets squared. So that is a perfect square. 81 I could write as 9 squared, so that's also a perfect square. So it meets the first requirement. Second one, if I do 2 times the square root of 2x squared times the square root of 81, you should get the same number as the middle term has. So square root sign and the squared sign cancel each other out. You're left with just 2x. And the square root of 81 is 9. So 2 times 2x times 9 is 36x. So it's the same number as your middle term. The fact that the middle term is negative means that you must have had a negative times a negative to get this number term as a positive number. So that means that your 4x squared minus 36x plus 81, if I factored that, I know the square root of 4x squared is just 2x. Square root of 81 is, you can write the square root of 81 as being plus or minus 9. So in this case it has to be a negative 9 squared. So yes, this is a perfect square, or this is a perfect square trinomial, and the factored form is 2x minus 9 in brackets squared. Part D. Y squared is a perfect square. Negative 16 is not. A perfect square always has to be a positive number because you can't take the square root of a negative. So any negative number, you know right away that is not a perfect square. So this isn't a perfect square trinomial.